A very warm welcome, our listeners and viewers. This is Shumarlas Marasa Gabra Mikhail with UMD News Update. Please stay with us. UMD is an emerging media extensively working in understanding, measuring, and doing matters. Our news package dwell on asking the 5 Ws and 8 questions, while we always check if the information is balanced, factual, and truthful. In today's news, we got the following major story headlines. While oppositions are calling for transitional government, the Tigray government clarified matters. Ethiopia celebrated Epiphany against grief. Survivors say Somali troops committed atrocities in Tigray. And now, the news in detail. While some contesting political parties call for transitional government, the Tigray administration explains matters of involvement and ways of handling the mass media. Following the controversial press releases and statements by contesting political parties in the region, the Tigray administration has clarified the ways and means actors are involved in political and other matters. According to the president of the Tigray regional state, Dr. Debretsion Gebremikael, if peace deals and other pressing issues pertaining to Tigray people's causes are on the table, all actors within the region and outside are going to be involved in one way or the other. Members of the parliament also explained on matters in which the state operates on the handling of the mass media and other sectors in time of crisis. It is to be recalled that contesting political parties are accusing the ruling party Tigray People's Liberation Front TPLF for not including them in the decision-making process. However, many scholars argue that this move and call contradicts basic democratic principles. Tigray regional president underlines the importance of taking Eritrea out of the game to achieve lasting peace in Ethiopia. Various preconditions are well in progress to conduct and realize ideal negotiations and lasting peace deals in Ethiopia. Key among them is the well-versed and detailed call by the president of the Tigray regional state, Dr. Debretsion Gebremikael. In his opening remark at the report, the president indicated as to how Eritrea has been involved in conflicts with its neighboring like Sudan, Djibouti, and Yemen to full-fledged conventional war with Ethiopia. Dr. Debretsion said Eritrea has directly involved in the war on Tigray since November 2020, and the massive human rights violations was achieved with an assistance from Abiy Ahmed of Ethiopia. Eritrea has lost tens of thousands of its citizens in Tigray, not to realize a visible national objective, but to avenge some perceived wrong that Isaias suffered at the hands of the Tigrayans and validate his delusions of grandeur as a regional heavyweight. According to Dr. Debretsion, international human rights advocates and various institutions have amply documented the Eritrean military's involvement in committing some of the most horrific violations of the laws of armed conflict, such as the brutalization of civilians, the deliberate destruction of civilian institutions, the plundering of private and public health, and the use of sexual violence as a tool of war. As an experienced leader of a rage state, the Eritrean dictator has practically authored a manual for how to navigate a terraceous international diplomatic terrain, President Debrecen added. Hence, Dr. Debrecen suggested that only sufficiently robust actions that create disincentives for the Isaias regime against continual involvement in the Ethiopian conflict have a reasonable chance of helping bring about peaceful resolution of the current conflict. In another development from the Tigray regional state, AP reported on Thursday, January 2022, that UN has confirmed food aid distribution in Ethiopia's Tigray is now at all-time lowest. According to the report, more than 50,000 children are thought to be severely malnourished, the latest sign of growing crisis amid efforts to end the country's 14-month war. This news also confirmed, quoting the latest UN Humanitarian Agency report, that food aid stocks and fuel are almost entirely exhausted in the region of some 6 million people. A government blockade was imposed in late June 2021 to keep supplies from reaching Tigray forces battling Ethiopian and allied troops, the report indicated. According to this update, conditions under the blockade have become so dire. The International Committee of the Red Cross, in a statement this week, said some doctors in Tigray are now using salt to clean wounds, handing out expired medications, and reusing single use items such as chest drains and gloves, the report stated. Now, moving to other national news, Ethiopia celebrates Epiphany against grief. Epiphany, locally known as Tumkat, Orthodox Christians' annual feast in commemoration of Jesus' baptism, joyously celebrated in different parts of Ethiopia, including the capital Addis Ababa and Gondar in the Amhara regional state. Some reports state, despite the call by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed for national reconciliation and pardoning of opposition leaders, the country is still in turmoil. According to African News, there are still challenges attached with the peace process, despite the initiative by UN General Secretary Antonio Guterres and the African Union High Representative for the Horn of Africa, Olusegun Obasanjo. Violent conflicts and fear of drone and airstrikes have accordingly forced the followers of the faith in Tigray regional state to skip the celebration of Epiphany, aka Tumkat, this year, while the other regions of Ethiopia are in a celebratory mood. Latest reports reached to UMD also indicated that some three ladies were killed in a clash occurred between government forces and the followers of the faith at St. Mary Church, commonly known as Waibla Mariam in central Ethiopia. UN chief cites demonstration efforts at peace in Ethiopia. The United Nations Secretary General says he is delighted to hear there is now a demonstrable effort to make peace in Ethiopia after more than 14 months of war. ABC News reported that Antonio Guterres, though he gave no details, issued the statement after a call with African Union envoy Olusegun Obasanjo following the envoy's latest visit to Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia, and embattled Tigray region. Guterres said Obasanjo expressed optimism that there is now a real opportunity for political and diplomatic resolution of the conflict. His statement did not describe efforts by Ethiopia's government and the rival Tigray forces. However, many scholars and politicians view the move with great suspicion, given Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's track record. The news report has also revealed that Ethiopia's war has killed estimated tens of thousands of people and displaced millions, some 900,000 people in Tigray, which has been under an Ethiopian government blockade since late June, face famine conditions. In addition, the World Health Organization says medical supplies have not been allowed into the region of some 6 million people. Report indicates that the global body has deferred to a party to the vicious war in Tigray by partnering with a state-funded watchdog. In his very detailed reportage entitled "The UN's Bap Backline Human Rights Reporting in Ethiopia," freelance journalist with the focus on the Horn of Africa and Ethiopia in particular, Zacharias Zelalem outlined how the global body has deferred to a party to vicious war in Tigray by partnering with a state-funded watchdog. In the analysis released on January 19, 2022 via New Line magazine, Zacharias indicated that despite the UNEHRC's final report in November 2021 concluding that all sides had committed atrocities, the statement thereafter appeared to appropriate blame equally, despite multiple media reports that found Eritrean soldiers had carried out the worst of the killings since the outbreak of the war. According to the writer, critics of the report accuse its authors of downplaying possible war crimes committed by Ethiopian and Eritrean troops. Zelalem also quoted Mahari Tadele, professor of transitional governance and professor of transnational governance and migration policy at the Florence's European University Institute, as saying that the report did not even come close to exposing the full extent of the devastation experienced by the Tigrayans at the hands of the Ethiopian government forces and their allies since last November 2020. Uh, gruesome atrocities, largely targeting civilian populations, rampant gang rapes of women, scores of massacres, in some cases with as many as hundreds of civilians murdered, and ethnic cleansing by Ethiopian and Eritrean forces, which were contributing factors to the displacement of over 2.2 million people, are some of the outrageous incidents indicated by the report. It is also worth to be underlined during those months that the war was fought under the communications blackout, making it impossible for journalists and aid workers who were barred from the Tigray region to verify chilling, chilling counts of the atrocities. It was also okay. It was also over this last week that the death of one of the most influential and celebrated Oromo musicians, Nuho Gobena, was heard. Nuho is known for his powerful force in the Oromo struggle for fairer world. According to scholars, his songs took on the most probing questions of unity, freedom, and liberation among the Oromo community and beyond. UMD media wishes his friends, families, and supporters to be comforted at this pressing moment. Now, moving to other regional news. Survivors say Somali troops committed atrocities in Tigray. New revelations about the atrocities by Somali soldiers in Ethiopia's Tigray war are casting a spotlight on the emerging military alliance that has reshaped the Horn of Africa, weakening Western influence in the strategically important region. The Globe and Mail reported, citing Eyewitness accounts that Somali troops embedded with Eritrean forces in Tigray in the early months of the war committed massacres. Though the three governments have officially denied any alliance, the Somali has denied that its troops were deployed in Tigray. The Globe's investigation has provided for the first time extensive details of civilian killings committed by Somali soldiers allied with Eritrean forces in the region. One of the eyewitness accounts the Globe contacted is Gabra Sadiq, a 52-year-old farmer from the village of Zeban Gadena in northwestern Tigray. According to Gabra Sadiq, the dusty roads of his village were strewn with the bodies of the decapitated clergymen in December 2020, a few weeks after the beginning of the war. The soldiers are believed to have been trained in Eritrea. The report also recalled the unofficial military alliance among Ethiopia, Eritrea, and Somalia, which is believed to date back to secret agreements after Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed came to power in Ethiopia in 2018. Is a further blow to the declining influence of Western governments in the Horn of Africa. U.S. senior diplomats were in Sudan this week to try to resolve post-coup crisis. Two senior US diplomats were in Sudan this last week to try and help find a way out of the ongoing crisis in the African country triggered by an October military coup. Assistant Secretary of State Molly Fee and the newly appointed U.S. Special Envoy for the Horn of Africa, David Sterfield, first met with pro-democracy activists from the Sudanese Professionals Association, while later in the week meet with the ruling generals and other political figures, according to an independent report wired via AP. Fee and Sterfield would reiterate Washington's call for Sudanese security forces to end violence, respect freedom of expression, and peaceful assembly. Sudan's turmoil has been worsened following the resignation of Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok earlier this month. Hamdok, who was ousted in October coup, only to be reinstated a month later under heavy international pressure, stepped down on January the 2nd after his efforts to reach a compromise failed, the report noted. On Monday, security forces opened fire on anti-coup protests in Khartoum, killing at least 7 people and wounding at around 100. The story also indicated that fatalities have brought the death of Taliban among protesters since the coup to more than 70. Now, before we finalize our news packet today, here are some of OCHA's Northern Ethiopia humanitarian update. OCHA publishes new situation reports on the conflict in northern Ethiopia regularly, as we all know. Accordingly, here are the major updates revised and issued on the 20th of January 2022. Key highlights among these updates are all-time lowest food distribution in Tigray as stock and fuel almost entirely exhausted, reaching only about 10,000 people between 6 to 12 January. More than 587,000 people reaching with food assistance under 2 food distribution rounds in Amhara during the reporting week. And about 377,000 people, or about 71% of the 534,000 targeted population, reached with food assistance under the current food distribution in Afar as of January 16. More than 145,000 children received measles vaccination in Tigray so far, but the campaign faces challenges including lack of fuel, cash, and cold chain capacity. An estimated hundreds of thousands of internally displaced persons have returned to their places of origin in Amhara. Well, that brings us to the end of our news package for today. This has been Shimelis Marasaga Rimkal here at UMD Media. Thank you for watching and see you with yet another program next time. And we also invite you all for an upcoming news shortly in Amharic shortly. Thank you. Have a good one.